No, I'm not calling the bully from high school 20 years ago. Are you kidding me? Why not? Oh, he'll think I'm an idiot. Okay, there's another mouse. Lead with that. I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. So I tracked down this guy's number, called him up, and said, look, I'm so nervous calling you because I think you're going to think I'm an idiot. Those are two mice. I'm nervous. And I'm worried you're going to think I'm an idiot. And he said, oh, well, I'm curious. What do you got? Tell me. And I said, I just felt like you always one-upped me in class and in school and, made fun of me. And we used to be friends. And I've resented you for 20 years and I'm letting go of it. And you don't have to do anything. I just wanted to let you know.
The Thomas Green podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and for every direct account we look after, we sponsor a child in a developing nation with food, water and education. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call, and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have David Wood. David, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Thomas.
It is my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, that's a broad topic. I coach people. I found that growing up in Australia, what happened is I started gravitating towards left brain thinking, and I think it's because I had a trauma when I was a kid, and we didn't know what was happening then. It's just I became really good at school, came top of the school, got paid to go to university, and then got transferred to Park Avenue. And at the age of 24, I'm consulting to Ford and Sony and Exxon. And then I discovered, I wasn't happy. I was making money and things were going really well, except that I just wasn't happy and I wasn't doing well in my marriage. So someone said, why don't you go and do this personal growth course? And it cracked my heart open. And I realized that money and numbers and systems and business are all wonderful. They're great, but there's so much more to life. So the first half of my life was about the left brain. The second half of my life has been about sitting with teachers and gurus and, going to India and Germany and working out what it is to be human, what it is to be vulnerable, authentic, honest, and to be a true leader. So I'm an unusual type of coach in that I don't just focus on life or business, which is normally what you do. I work with business owners and I'm happy to double revenue and work on marketing and money. But if that's all you want, you should really go to somebody else, because I'm going to also look at the big picture and look at how you're showing up with your kids. What's your legacy? Are you living life so that if you're on your deathbed 5 years from now, you could look back and say, I gave it everything? That's what I really care about.
Thank you for the introduction. Do you mind defining what you mean by left brain thinking?
Yeah, I'm very logical and rational. And so when I was younger, my little sister was killed and I witnessed it. And apparently a trauma response is that people will learn to shut down their emotions. So I didn't know I had a body. People didn't say to me, David, what's happening in your body? That was never a question. It wasn't a thing. People didn't say, how are you feeling? What are your emotions right now? So I didn't even look there. I would just skip over all of that and go straight to what's the solution here? What needs to happen? Now that's useful to have. It's useful to have that skill that, like, if I was in an armed holdup once and I was the only person in that room who moved when the guy in the ski mask jumped the counter. I'm like, good to have in an emergency. But until the age of 27, 28, I didn't have a lot of the other stuff. My wife said, when I finally went to therapy and took her with me to try and understand what was going on, she said, yeah, he's kind of like a cardboard cutout. I was two-dimensional. And now I'm much more, my emotions are much more available. I can sit with a client who's in deep distress and go with them into the emotions. Whereas until 27, I was like, what emotions? I'm fine. I'm not feeling anything. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, great answer. And I'm sorry to hear that that happened. But I always find that it's useful to ask under those types of scenarios, if someone is in that same position you were, what advice would you give them?
At what age? 7, 18?
Well, I suppose for the purpose of the exercise is someone who is pretending they don't have emotions and
Ah,
perhaps is too left-brained, if you could say too left-brained.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love this. I would love to help people who are either where I am now or where I was back then. I think it can be quite common, I think for men even more, to just be in our heads. And we're just heads with no body, nothing below the chin. And I was sitting with this teacher who used to be Osho's right-hand guy, and we're talking about being in your body. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I finally raised my hand and I said, what do you mean being in your body and how do you do it? And the class laughed and he said, no, that's a good question. That's a valid question. And people were trying to help me. And one woman said, you could start by wiggling your toes. And I was like, thank you. That's something I could begin with. Here's what I would suggest. If you're like so much in your head, and another example, because I really want to drive it home so that hopefully people can relate. I once dated a Tantra teacher and I'd say to her, how are you? How are you feeling? Because I wanted to go more in the direction of feeling. How are you? How are you feeling? She said, I feel like a resonance in my chest, like a deep bass note going into the earth. And then it's rippling out into my arms, and there's a tingling in my fingers, she gave me like 1 to 2 minutes of explanation of what was going on in her body. And then she said, how are you? And I said, good. That's all I had. I'm good. There's nothing wrong. I didn't know what was going on. So here's something you can do that's very practical. When someone says, how are you? Do not give an automated response. Do not just say good. Do not just say fine. Actually stop and check in. I do this. I have a lot of client calls and often clients will be like, how are you doing? I will stop, close my eyes, check in with my body. So if I do it right now, and listeners, you can do it right now. Don't do it if you're driving. Keep your eyes open if you're driving. But feel into your body and just see what's there. I notice there's like a current in my body, almost like I had a little bit of electricity running through it. I feel a lovely energy in my hands, and I feel at peace. And I didn't know that until I checked in. I actually feel really good and grounded. And my neck and shoulders, where I often have some pain, are actually pretty chill. So that's how I am right now. Take that opportunity whenever people say to you, how are you? Say, give me a second to just find out. They're going to be so surprised. They're like, wow, because nobody does that. And that'll just bring a little bit more presence to an awareness to the body. I live most of my day in my head, and then I take brief visits to the body when maybe I do some yoga or someone says, how are you? And it's a lifetime journey.
What distinction would you make between being present, because that's a phrase which I would say people are often using, between being in your body?
Present is a really interesting term. To me, present, I'm not sure that you can ever not be present. If you take the broadest term, present is just being with whatever's happening. And if what's happening is you're thinking about your anniversary 3 years ago, then that's what you're present to. You're with that. You're with a thought. Now, some people might say, well, that's not really what we want to call as present. Being present is more with what's happening in real time now in the universe. So not some thought about 3 years ago, not some thought about what am I going to make for dinner tonight, but you could call present, I'm with the desk in front of me. I'm aware of what's happening in my body right now. I'm aware of the thoughts. I'm even present to the thoughts about the anniversary 3 years ago. I'm watching that. I would say that's present. And a subset of that is you could be present to what's happening in your body.
The first part of that answer is a good example of maybe how you said that you were logical, because like you say, you always have to be present even if you're thinking of the future. But you mentioned in your introduction that you've been, should we say, you've had teachers or gurus all across the world, and I think it might be beneficial for others who maybe can't do that, if you could share maybe what you've learned from all of that teaching.
Oh, wow. You don't mind asking the big questions, the broad questions. Yeah, I think from Paul Lowe, his main thing was share your inner dialogue. Share your inner dialogue, that voice that's going on in your head. And at Landmark Education, they'd say, everyone in the room who's thinking, I don't have a voice, here's what the voice is saying right now. Voice? What voice? I don't have a voice in my head. So, and we hide so much. And I understand why, we've been hurt. And so we've learned if we just share things unfiltered, we'll get in trouble. Might get a smack when we're a kid. We might offend someone. We might lose someone. So we've learned how to perform and be an actor, which is ironic since now I'm going into acting. But I'll be acting in a certain way that's supposed to get me something good, and you're acting in a certain way. And we keep trying to do the spiritual work to take the layers off and get to what's underneath. So he'd say, share your inner dialogue. So we'd say to things like, we go to someone and say, I'm attracted to you. I notice I'm hoping something develops with us. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Well, hearing that, I notice this is what's going on for me, and this is what's going through my mind. I'm impressed that you're willing to share that. It seems like a brave thing to do. And I don't feel any attraction on my side. And we just do this for like 7 days straight. And then someone said to me once, that 5% that you're not sharing, that's where all the value is. I was like, whoa, really? Like, yeah, there's stuff that I was really scared to say. He's like, that's the stuff you want to get to now. I was like, wow. So now I'm writing a book about it. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see in the background, I got a book called Mouse in the Room, because, and it's from that teacher all those years ago. We've got so many mice running around. We all know about the elephant in the room. You see it, I see it, no one's saying anything. We should totally address the elephant in the room. But many creatures in the room are much more subtle. If I got to this podcast 3 minutes late and didn't say anything, that'd be a mouse. I might be feeling embarrassed about it. I might be wondering if you're annoyed about it. Those are both mice that can be named so that we can move on. If someone said something in a meeting last week and I felt insulted and didn't say anything, that's a mouse. Might be growing in size, but it's like something I've got that can be named. So inner dialogue is huge. It could be a thought. A mouse could be a thought, which is your inner dialogue. It could be a physical sensation. Oh, I notice as we're watching this movie, my stomach's really clenching up, and I'm not sure if I want to keep watching this. It seems really violent. Could be this is what's going on in my body. So any thought, emotion, sensation can be a mouse to be named. So that's where I go even beyond the inner dialogue. And then the second teacher that's had a massive impact is Byron Katie. And I went and sat with Katie for a month. And we went deep, and I was doing like 8 to 10 hours a day, it seemed, doing what she calls the work. And it's interesting that the first teacher was all about sharing your inner dialogue. Katie says the worst thing that can happen to you is a thought. It's not losing your leg. It's not losing my sister at age 7. It's not having anxiety and depression and, some of the challenges, or having my paraglider collapse and breaking my spine. It's not those things that give you a bad experience. It's whatever you are believing about those experiences. The actual day when my...
with the 5% you referred to?
I think I'm doing really well, partly because I've surrounded myself by people who also believe in being authentic and sharing what's going on. And so it makes it a bit easier, and they're used to, I can say, hey, I notice I have a withhold. Can we talk about it? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, okay. So I'm in that kind of culture here in Boulder, Colorado. So it's a little easier for me to do that. But partly you've got to catch it, because these mice are scurrying around in the background. They might be very subtle. And so it might take a year for me to realize, I've been annoyed at you for something, and I've just kind of squashed it down, and I want to talk about it because I don't want that in between us. I want to feel closer to you. Can we talk about it?
So for those who are perhaps considering or are willing to share that 5%, what would they expect as a result of doing that?
Well, I would say don't even start with that 5%. That's super scary. There's like another 20, 30, 40, 50% that you can share. You might be just wanting something in the bedroom, or not wanting something in the bedroom. You might just want to ask someone out, So the book, Mouse in the Room, is designed to help you discover what's in there. Now, once you do that for 6 to 12 months, then we could start talking about, all right, what's left? But when I did Landmark Education, they had me calling people and calling people and calling people to name my mice. They didn't call them mice, but they're like, who are you incomplete with? I said, nobody. Okay, look deeper. Who would you not want to pass on the street? Oh, okay. That's a longer list. And I started making lists of people. Who do you resent? Who owes you an apology? These are incredible ways to uncover anything that's incomplete in your life. So I'd start making lists. Then they're like, okay, make a phone call. No, I'm not calling the bully from high school 20 years ago. Are you kidding me? Why not? Oh, he'll think I'm an idiot. Okay, there's another mouse. Lead with that. I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. So I tracked down this guy's number, called him up, and said, look, I'm so nervous calling you because I think you're going to think I'm an idiot. Those are 2 mice. I'm nervous, and I'm worried you're going to think I'm an idiot. And he said, oh, I'm curious. What do you got? Tell me. And I said, I just felt like you always one-upped me in class and in school, and, made fun of me, and we used to be friends, and I've resented you for 20 years, and I'm letting go of it. And you don't have to do anything. I just wanted to let you know. Right? That's naming that really big mouse that I've been carrying around for a long time. And he said the most amazing thing in the world.
Oh, you're going to go into it. I was worried we weren't going to get the end of that story then.
Yeah, no, he blew me away. He said, well, what could I say or do now to help you or us move forward? This was the guy that I had been holding was a jerk for 20 years. So that's a big mouse. I'm not saying that everyone listening to the call has to go and call bullies from 20 years ago, but you can. What I would say is start a list. Just take 5 minutes. Start a list. Who owes me an apology? Who's disappointed me? Who do I owe an apology to? And you can go back as far as you want. And you don't have to call everyone on that list, but you might pick 2 or 3 and reach out. I was on a podcast interview like this, and the guy's like, I've hated a guy who beat me up in school. And he ended up reaching out on Facebook, found this guy and told him about this, and got a really sweet apology from the guy. And he's like, my world just shifted. I've been holding on to that for so long. So there's such upside when we artfully name our mice. Now I say artfully because if you do it the wrong way, say, hey, we need to talk, I'm pissed at you, that doesn't usually go over very well. There are ways to do it, and we do outline in the book a simple process so you can do it like a paint by numbers, give you a much better chance of it going well.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Have you got any other examples that are particularly, would you say, that you're proud of in relation to people that you reached out to?
Well, what's coming up? I'll tell you a couple of examples, and I would love to come back and double click on that second guru about the idea that a thought is the worst thing that can happen to you. If we have time, and if we don't, that's totally fine. This is your show. There was a girl who dumped me twice when I was a teenager. Twice, and gave me the cold shoulder each time. And I was pretty upset about that, so I called her. And I said, look, you don't have to do anything. I'm letting it go. And she said, I was such an idiot. I'm so sorry. I was so irresponsible. And I'm just really, really sorry. And I was like, oh my God. There was another ex-girlfriend who we'd broken up like 5-6 times, and it was a brutal experience for me. And I was angry for 10 years. And I'm a coach. I did all my work and I tried to let go of it, and I realized she doesn't owe me an apology. She did the best she could. That's my spiritual self. And finally I got coaching on it, and I realized that if we were to be friends, I would need an apology. That was the path. We don't have to be friends, but if we're going to clear this. And so I reached out and said, would you like to know why I've held you at a distance the last 10 years? Because I know she wanted to be friends. And she said, hell yes. And so I created 2 videos. They were like 2 4-minute videos, because I didn't like the first 7 I created. So I deleted them, and then I made it until I got it right, and it felt clean, and it felt, non-blamey. And I said, this is what I'm upset about. You did this, 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 and this, and I wish you'd done it differently. And I get you probably weren't trying to be mean, but it was devastating to me. And if we're going to be friends, I'd like to know that you're sorry, and that if you had it over, you would do it differently, knowing what you know now, for me to trust you. And I don't think I was attached to any kind of an outcome. I just said, now I've said my piece. And she sent me the most beautiful apology. She said, I was addicted to you, and I wish I'd known enough to just walk away and leave you in peace. And I'm so sorry. And I cried and cried and cried. I told myself I didn't need that. I didn't need any of that. And we've since become friends. I actually do care about her. And she ended up responding to a job ad I had and worked for me for a while. It was amazing. So much is possible. I love my ex-wife. And a couple of years ago, I went and stayed with her and her husband and her little boy, who calls me Uncle David. These things are possible when you start seeing what's going on inside of you, and then can start sharing it with the other person. It's vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage, But the keys to the kingdom are yours if you can go that way. There's also business application. I don't want people to think, oh, this is just a feel-good exercise. No, when you start living this way, people will trust you. They will trust you because you're showing what's going on. Sometimes it'll be awkward. Sometimes it'll be, that you'll have to deal with their feelings and their mice. But if you can stick with it, you can go so much deeper, and then more people will want to work with you. You'll get opportunities. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a speaker and a thought leader. I get opportunities to go and speak on stage or to be nominated and elected to the Transformational Leadership Council with people that I'm in awe of, like Marianne Williamson and Don Miguel Ruiz and Jack Canfield. And I say those things could not happen if I was living the old way where I was hiding everything. You'll be a better leader. People will follow you because okay, I trust this woman. I trust this man.
Yeah, well, I think on top of that, I suppose there's a benefit. There's a selfish benefit to being able to say, I say how I feel. I'm not trying to keep anything from anyone. A clear conscience is I know it might sound a bit cliche, but I think a clear conscience is a very beneficial thing from a selfish point of view for you to aspire to.
Clear conscience is one of the rewards. It's one of the prizes. I'll tell you, I won't go into the details of it because it was very private for me, but it was such a big moment in my life. I'd felt guilty about something I did when I was a kid. I felt like I may have hurt somebody, and I just felt bad about it for 20, 30 years, and I didn't know how to name the mouse, and I got coaching, and finally I went and tracked the person down and said, look, I want to confess. I have a confession mouse. I didn't say confession mouse, but it was a confession mouse. I said, it was me. I'm the one who did that thing way back then, and I want to check for impact. And how was it for you? And I'm really sorry. That's not who I am today, and I just want to make amends if I can. And it turned out they were like, oh, it's fine, I'm totally fine, zero impact. I was like, oh my God. I was so nervous. They could have been really mad at me. I could have been prosecuted. It could have been really awkward. While we're on the topic of mouse naming, once I noticed I kept driving past the college where I went when I was 18, 19, 20. And I lived there, and I'd stolen the sign twice. And I kept looking at that sign, and I'd drive by it on my way to work, and I felt bad. I felt like that was just wrong. It seemed like fun at the time, but now it just seems like vandalism. I'm like, what am I going to do about it? And I thought if I call up and admit to it, they could call the police and I get prosecuted, and that could be in the paper, and that's going to impact my reputation. I was going through all this stuff, and finally I was like, this is what I'm committed to. So I called up, spoke to the principal who I'd never met, and told him, I'm sorry, I stole the college sign twice and I'd like to make it right. Can I write you a check? And he's like, who is this? And I said, I'm David Wood. And he goes, and how long ago was this? I said, 15, 20 years ago. And why are you calling? And I said, well, I'm a life coach now, and I try and live a transparent life. I try and clean up messes when I make them, and this is a mess, and it was wrong. And I'd like to make it right. It's just how I live. And he's like, well, your timing's good because we just lost another of the damn things. And they're expensive. So he told me how much it was. I wrote him a check. And a week later, here's what I didn't tell you. I had been banned from that college, not for stealing the sign, but from leading kids in other things and basically making mischief. I'd been banned. I wasn't welcome. A week later, I got an invitation from the principal to attend the opening of the new wing of the college. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm showing up. And I showed up, and the Prime Minister of Australia happened to be there because it was in his district and he was there to open the wing and officiate. And there's this line of like 100 people waiting to meet him. And the principal saw me standing there and just jumped the line and said, "Prime Minister, I want to introduce you to one of our alumni. This is David Wood." Personal introduction to the Prime Minister. I wasn't going to line up to meet him. All of that out of just naming a mouse with someone, confession mouse, and cleaning it up. So they don't always go that well. All right? You may lose something. This is why you haven't done it yet. It may feel awkward. The other person may have feelings. They may get upset. I just named a mouse with a client yesterday. I said, "Look, I know you're in a very urgent situation, and I know you're having trouble accessing your funds right now, and it's also been a month since I've been paid. So let's talk about what we can do. Maybe we can reduce the coaching and I'll keep going and keep supporting you, but not at the current level until you can pay." I thought it was a nice offer. Well, she had feelings come up. She felt abandoned. Now, it doesn't have to be logical, but she felt abandoned and she had feelings like, I'm really trying. I'm trying to make all this happen, and here you are leaving me. And so it's awkward. And I stuck with it, and I got to really follow the steps in the book. I said, let me check I'm getting this right. You feel this, 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 and this. And she said, no, that's not it. Okay, tell me. And then we got to, okay, yes, this is it. I understand. Can you hear my side now? Is there any space? She said, okay. And I said, well, I feel like this is a nice offer that I'm making. Yeah, I haven't been paid, and it's a value I have on being paid before I coach, and I'm actually offering to keep supporting you. And we worked it out. And then I got this beautiful message later. Thank you for sticking with me while I had that reaction. So it's not for the faint of heart, but if you walk down this path, I really think even though sometimes you'll lose something, you could lose a job. If you speak your truth, you might lose that promotion. I'm talking worst case now. You might get prosecuted if you go and confess to a crime. You might have your partner leave you. I coached someone on confessing to an affair. I have confessed when I was 18 and totally stupid, got drunk and slept with someone else. One of the worst things I think I've done in my life. And confessing was horrendous. But we worked through it. I lost the relationship for about 4 weeks until I could earn her trust back. And that's the woman I ended up marrying. So, yeah, you'll lose stuff. But wouldn't you rather walk this path? This path of, which I think is a noble path, of telling your truth and letting the chips fall, telling your truth artfully and gently and kindly. And then if you lose some things, okay, you'll find more things.
Well, some of the examples you've given, I think that, people can do a lot of changing in that time frame. So one of the examples you gave was from like 15 years or 20 years ago. And you can be hanging on to that stuff for a long time, and that person's completely changed. You're really either apologizing or being mad at someone who that's not them anymore. It's the them from 20 years ago or whatever. So I think it's from you said you were left-brained initially, but if anything, this might be the logical way to go about it. What do you think about that?
What arises as I hear that is that we have blind spots. I live each day as if I don't. I think that I'm super intelligent. I think I'm the smartest person in the room usually, and that I have an amazing brain. But we have blind spots. We have stable data where we've just taken something in, and now that's how the world is. That's how we live. I think they call it Maya, the illusion of that's how the world is. It's like we're in our own private matrix. He is a jerk. This person abandoned me. I had a therapy session yesterday, coaching/therapy, and I put some new things together that I had not seen in 20 years. I have a fear of noise, really, because noise triggers my nervous system. There's a bang in the house or a thud, I go on alert. And I'm moving to Los Angeles soon, and I'm worried about how I'm going to be because I can get an anxiety response. And this coach was able to help me put some things together. And once we dealt with the fear of noise and I got to another place of joy and freedom and peace, I started feeling like I want to get out into the world more. I want to explore the world. I want to date. I want to go to shows. And because normally I'm quite hermited, I want to go out and have coffee with people and lunches and brunches and go to industry functions in Los Angeles. I started feeling this emerging into the world. Had no idea that my phobia about sound is dampening some of the other things. So I think that was an indirect answer to your question. I think we have blind spots. And so it's not until we hear a podcast like this, perhaps, or go and sit with a teacher or read a book, or do a course, do an immersion, until we can sometimes have those moments of, oh, maybe he didn't leave me. Like my client yesterday, I'm being left. And then by the end of the call, she had the opposite experience. No, he is with me. He is not being paid, and he is with me. He's not going anywhere. But the story that comes up, these stories over and over and over again, one of the categories of mice in the book, we've identified 7 major mice. One of them is called storytelling mouse. And that's where you are telling yourself a story. Now, you may not even know it. It's just reality to you. But then, hopefully as you read the book or listen to the podcast, you'll be like, maybe that is a story. Maybe I could check that out with the person and see if it's real. I assume that so-and-so's not interested in a friendship because they haven't responded to the last 2 texts. That's my story. Maybe I'll check it out. I might write, hey, I'm getting the idea that maybe you're not up for a friendship now. Maybe the timing's not right. And, because I saw you haven't responded. Just want to check if that feels true. If it is, okay, God bless. Maybe there'll be another time. Or if you've just gotten really busy and you would like to make something happen, let me know. That's me checking out a storytelling mouse. We do it all the time, but we don't even know it's there.
Thank you for that. I feel like I could talk to you about this for a very long time, and I'm conscious of the fact that you've got a book out. Would you like to talk about the book just for a moment, or maybe a favorite chapter?
Yeah. Thank you. And the book is coming out in the next month or 2, but already you can get the mini book, which will outline the mice. It's got beautiful pictures in it, and it'll give you what you need to get started in mouse naming. You can contribute to the book production if you want and be part of the Amazon bestseller campaign, which we're going to run as an excuse to hold a party, basically. I think I've already talked about mouse in the room. Well, I want to go deeper into storytelling mouse. So we're telling ourselves stories all the time, and that's fine. And we're often just believing them automatically. And often that'll work, except for when it comes to people, because we're often got stories that are just not true at all. And this will give me a chance to come back to that work of Byron Katie and checking out your thoughts, because the thoughts are the only thing that can actually cause us pain. When my paraglider collapsed and I fractured my spine, I was in a lot of pain. I was screaming, actually. And it doesn't happen very often. But I was screaming in agony. And then I think the story that was going through my head was I might be paralyzed. Then I wiggled my toes, and I'm like, okay. And then I said out loud, I know what this is, because I'd had a similar injury from parkour a few years before, And I'm like, okay, I know what this is. This is contusions. I got massive bruising of the lower back. I may have a slight compression fracture. I know exactly, because I fell 15 feet onto my butt. Boom. And I had a good time. From that moment. People rushed over to me. They're speaking in Spanish. They're all helping me. I'm helpless. I kept my camera rolling. I actually have a video of that. I don't know if I've ever published it, but I've got a video of the crash, and then I kept it rolling while it all happened. And I'm like, all right, I'm making a film. And then they put me under a shed on a stretcher for an hour and just left me alone while I'm waiting for the ambulance, because it's up on a mountain. And I made some videos for friends, and I had a good time. I was in pain, but it wasn't agony. And then the ambulance ride. The worst thing about it all was I couldn't pee. And I was busting, and I was worried. Again, another story, my bladder might burst. Another storytelling mouse. My bladder might burst. Is it true? I could have asked him. Is this a problem? I had a lovely day. My girl I was dating came and picked me up from the hospital. I managed to hobble from the wheelchair to the car, took some painkillers. People assume you had an accident, you fractured your spine, is a horrible experience. No, it was wonderful. So storytelling mouse and mirror mouse. Mirror mouse is where it's really just for you. It's something you've discovered about yourself. Here's the clue. If you are suffering in any way, there's anything about your day. I woke up with, I'm tired. I'm going to be tired for the rest of the day. How am I going to function? Let's run it through the head. Anytime you notice any kind of a negative experience, write down the thought. That's your storytelling mouse. Write down the thought. I'm in trouble. That's usually my baseline problem. I'm in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble. This bad thing is going to happen. Write it down and then check it out. Check out if it's actually true. If you have a coach, bring it to your coach, because it's often hard to see all this stuff yourself, but someone outside you. I hear a client complaining about something, or they're down about something, or upset or anxious. I'm listening for, what's the belief here? And then I can help them go into that, because now I see the way they got into the hole, so I can see the way out. It's often easier with somebody else. So Mouse in the Room, you can go to mouseintheroom.com and be part of the campaign. That's what I have to say about this book. I think this book could change the world. It really could, bringing people closer and having the level of authenticity raise.
Well, like I say, I feel like I could talk to you for a long time about this topic. So you have a buyer here. So if there's some sort of mailing list or something, feel free to put me on there. But I will visit the website. Have you got any closing thoughts for us, David?
I appreciate this chance to talk about discovering what's actually happening in ourselves. I started the journey 20-something years ago. It's a lifetime journey to work out, wait a minute, what is happening? My coach just sent me an emotion wheel. I'm seeing emotions I don't think I've heard of on that wheel. So I can start to continue my education in emotional intelligence. And anyone listening who's thinking, yeah, I'd like to know more about what's happening in my body. I'd like to be better at moving my body and integrating and not just being intellectual. I hope some of this has helped. And I really hope you get the mini book of Mouse in the Room and share it. Download it, share it with your friends, post it on social media. Let's make a movement. Let's start a mouse naming movement. And I see a time when kids will go to their parents and say, "Mommy, can I name a mouse with you?" And people, in corporations say, "Hey, I want to name a couple of mice." And it's just like, oh, I know what you're talking about. There's something going on for you. You just want to name it. Okay, go for it. That's what I see. Let's make that happen.
All right. Well, thank you for. I think that what you've done is you've learned from what you've said today. You've learned so much, and you've condensed it down into something which I think would be beneficial for an awful lot of people. So thank you for that contribution, and also thank you for being a great guest today.
Oh, you're welcome. And if I may say, Thomas, too, if anyone listening to this is thinking, actually, I think I could use a coach, and you want to see if we'd be a fit, you can go to myfocusgift.com. And I've got a couple of downloads I prepared for you that are free. There's a really cool video, and there's a link where you can request, I call it a double your revenue audit, because most people who come to me want to double their revenue. That's the first thing. That's how I get them in the door. So double your revenue audit, you can click on that and we'll get on the phone and see if coaching would be right for you and if we're a fit. And that link is myfocusgift.com.
Well, for everyone listening, please review the links in the description. David Wood, thank you very much.